Hello everyone, thank you for joining us in this edition of The Inside on Equinoxe Television, broadcasting from Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Bable Jonathan. In this edition of the program, we're going to be talking about gross human rights violations and abuse, the consequences on the image of the Republic of Cameroon, and possible solutions that can be implemented to turn the tide. 2 journalists brutally assassinated, or better still killed, in 2 weeks in the Republic of Cameroon after Amplitude FM radio station manager Martinez Zogo followed that of radio presenter Orthodox priest Jean-Jacques Ola Bebe. They were all killed, and the killers are still being tracked down by investigations. And of course, the United Nations Human Rights Arm has expressed grave concerns about the security and safety of journalists in the Republic of Cameroon. Meantime, right organizations continue decrying such extrajudicial killings and other human rights violations in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, where security and socio-political tensions have been prevailing for over 6 years now. All of these having adverse consequences on the image of the Republic of Cameroon. And faced with these issues, these ills, what is the solution? What are the solutions that can be implemented to turn the tide? We'll try to answer these questions in this edition of The Insight. Meet our guest in some few seconds. Our first guest today is Amadu TARNTE. He's a human rights defender, Northwest and Littoral Regions head of African Conscious Human Rights Organization. You're welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you, Babila. It's really a privilege for me to be a guest on your program today.
Right, thank you for joining us. Professor Edmond BILOA is an international university don. He's a professor of linguistics at the University of Yaoundé 1, vice rector of the University of Yaoundé 2. He's a militant of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPD, and political party. Professor, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Babila. Thank you for inviting me. I wish to extend my greetings to the viewers of Equinoxe.
Engineer Elvis NJINE is our third guest in this special edition of The Inside. He's a political leader, head of the communication department of the Popular Action Party, the PAP. Welcome.
It's a pleasure, Mr. Jonathan. Of course, a special greeting to all viewers from Equinoxe Television.
Right, we're going to be looking at the human rights, judicial and legal ramifications of the recent issues, recent happenings in the Republic of Cameroon. 2 journalists killed in 2 weeks. What's your reading of these gross human rights violations that we are experiencing, that we're living today in the Republic of Cameroon as a human rights defender?
I want by condemning in strongest terms such a barbaric treatment that have recently been subjected to some journalists who are the voice of the voiceless. And journalism of freedom. This one is a serious threat to freedom of the press, and freedom of press is a strong pillar of democracy, and we are in a democratic state, and it's regrettable that such thing is happening in Cameroon, and worst of all, done by state agents, meaning it's a state crime. That's a gross human rights violation that have been perpetrated by agents of the Republic of Cameroon.
Investigations are still going on to establish the perpetrators, those who actually committed that act, the killing of journalist Martinez Zogo, and even the killing of Ola Bebe. Is not yet known those who actually committed the act. Professor, when you look at the way these journalists were killed, particularly that of Amplitude FM station manager Martinez Zogo, some pictures went viral on the internet, and then some descriptions, some very horrific descriptions of how he was killed. What do you think about such actions in our country, in a a law-abiding country, as the authorities have repeatedly said, and in a democratic country, as President Paul Biya has said on several occasions, and many other government authorities.
Before I take the floor on this matter, I would like to extend my sincere condolences to the family of the bereaved journalist. My heart goes out to them. I have to say that I was shocked, and everybody was shocked with what happened to Martinez ago. Sincerely, I don't think that anybody expected something like that to happen in Cameroon. Because one thing that everybody is proud of is that there is a lot of press freedom in Cameroon. There are so many newspapers, so many televisions, so many radios, and people talk freely, and nothing as brutal as that has ever happened to anybody. So that came as a shock, the killing of Martinez Zogo. And it's a good thing that the investigations are still going on, and that ultimately justice will be carried out, and those who did it will certainly be punished by the judiciary system. And we are hoping that something like that should never happen again. You see, the powers that be usually want to control the press, okay? So it is the responsibility of the state, it is everybody's responsibility to make sure that the press is free. In the US, they usually say that the press is the fourth power, all right? It's the fourth power, and indeed it's very, very powerful. Throughout the history of the United States, it has happened that a president of the United States asks the director of the CIA to have a journalist killed. Everybody remembers the story of Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon, who was the president of the U.S., and his friend was the director of CIA. And Nixon told his friend, the director of CIA, to have the journalist, I think his name was John Anderson, to be killed. Because John Anderson was publishing in the newspapers secrets about the U.S. dealings with foreign governments. Whenever the U.S. were planning to kill a foreign head of states or to invade a country, Anderson will publish it in the newspapers. So Nixon called the director of CIA and told him, I want Anderson killed. And the director of CIA told me, no, we cannot do it. He's a journalist. He's an American journalist. It is his responsibility to inform the public. We cannot kill him just because he has been doing his job. So in Africa, we need to get to a point where somebody somewhere will tell his boss or the person who is willing to pay him or her that we cannot kill a journalist, because the journalist is informing the public, and that is part of his job.
And just like the example that you took, Martinez Zogo, and even the other radio presenter, the Orthodox priest, Jean-Jacques Olabebe, were critical voices speaking against corruption, embezzlement, and other actions. And before the mortal remains of Olabebe was discovered close to his house, he was one of those who stood up to ask for justice for Martinez Zogo. And this is happening, and the investigations are going on, right? The investigations are going on. But there seem to be a question that remains unanswered today about these killings that took place. The torture, because they were not just killed, but they were terribly tortured. And the description is not even something that I can give here. We read it on social media, but it's so horrifying. Why that kind of extreme treatment of an individual because he's doing his job?
Well, we saw the pictures of Martinez Zogo on television and in the social media. So it is very obvious that he might have been tortured, that he was tortured, as a matter of fact. That there was a great deal of violence on his body. We were all expecting the results of the inquiries, of the investigations. But at this point, we can all conjecture that maybe those who did it wanted to get some information from him. Because it is, you believe that those journalists had inside informations. Okay, they had inside informations. So I presume, I'm not sure about what I'm saying, I presume, we have to wait for the results of the investigation. I presume that they might have been tortured. They were tortured in order to get information from them, in order to find out who gave them the information they were broadcasting, or the information they were publishing, who gave them the information, and so on and so forth. But I mean, when you, in retrospect, when you think about it, Martinez Zogo had been talking about those things for quite some time. People before him had been talking about it, and nothing was forthcoming as far as action from the judiciary system or action from the government. So it is difficult to understand why they thought it necessary to kill them now, right? Because, I mean, they have been talking about it. What happened? Nothing. I mean, we don't expect things to happen all of a sudden. Normally, in a democracy, journalists should be able to say what they want to say, and whether they talk about you or they talk about somebody else, until such time as the judiciary system hasn't found the proof that you are guilty, the journalists can continue talking about it.
All right.
That is why we are very surprised that some people, we don't know yet who did it, some people decided to kill the the journalists.
Right. Elvis, while we are still talking about Martinez Zogo, the fire is still on. It has not yet been quenched. Another one follows. And another one connected to the same issues that are highlighted in the case of Martinez Zogo, notably corruption, embezzlement, and we remember that Ola Bebe had been criticizing or talking about these issues, raising an alarm about the corruption and embezzlement eating up into the marrows of the country.
Again, before I say anything, I will say may Martinez rest in peace, while as we continue to hope that justice will follow its due course and we know exactly the truth of the matter till the end. But coming back to your question as to whether we are in a jungle, permit me say that we have lived in a jungle for 40 years. That's what I would say. Because Martinez, Jean-Jacques are just some of the journalists that have been killed in this country. We can cite Samuel Wazizi, we can cite Bibi Ngota and many others, and even other individuals who have that maybe not directly linked to the journalism field. That is to confirm to that we have been living in a jungle, because they give us that impression that there is freedom of expression, but like others will say, the difference here is that once you express yourself, your freedom after you have expressed yourself is no longer guaranteed. And why do I say we have been living in a jungle? We have been living in a jungle because when you look at what is happening, or what just happened to Martinez and Jean-Jacques, what you realize, or what I can say here is that we have the impression that we are living in a country where people are fighting. There is this paradox of maybe people who are trying to position themselves already after they are preparing themselves for that. But now Martinez somehow proved himself, or Martinez became some sort of a nuisance to these people because he revealed things that were very much disturbing as far as, permit me to say, these cartels are concerned. Because I would rather say it's a cartel. To whosoever did it, those who killed him, I would call it a cartel. You see? So Martinez became a nuisance because he revealed information that was somehow very much touching and disturbing onto their own plans as to how perhaps they intended to get to power and all that. And then second, when you talk about corruption, embezzlement and all that, you know that these are things, unfortunately, that the head of state has been constantly assuring Cameroonians that he will fight against, but has never been doing so. You see? And so Martinez, playing his role of a journalist, we don't know how he got access to this information, but he made it public, and he was just playing his own role as a journalist, like the professor rightly said here.
Why do you say the head of state has been talking about the fight against corruption, but not fighting the corruption? Is he not the one who put in place the Operation Sparrow? What about those who have been arrested and detained? He is the same person who ordered for investigations by the police and the National Gendarmerie in the killing of Martinez.
No, if you want to talk about the head of state's decision with respect to Martinez's case, I would want to tell you it is an action that at least we laud that action, though he came a little late. Given the promptness and the gravity of the crime, though we laud that action, we appreciate it. You see, but talking about the fight against corruption in this country, I would say it is almost nothing to me. Because we know very well that information that Martinez released and the names of persons and persons that he cited, if we were to investigate and go into the crooks and crannies of this government, you will realize that almost all the persons we have as barons in this country today are corrupt persons and don't deserve to be where they are. So announcing the Operation Sparrow Hawk and putting in place CONAC and so many other things, when we have thousands and thousands of people who occupy offices, but we know that their hands are not very, very clean, to me that's not doing anything. If you catch a handful of people and you send behind bars, now, after sending them, we have never known exactly where the resources that they had, were they ever retrieved or not. Those are questions that Cameroonians are still begging for answers to them, you see. So, I will still want to come back to your question. What, are we living in the jungle? I say we are living in a jungle. Some people have actually taken the justice system in this country. Some people have taken the state of Cameroon as a private affair of theirs. In other words, everything has been privatized right up to the justice system. And that is why some people think that they have gone either beyond the law or they are the law itself, and so can take decisions into their hands, and they decide who can die when and how, simply maybe because you revealed a certain information against someone. Some people said it was defamation and all that. I don't think that in the constitution of this country, it is stated anywhere that if I were to maybe say anything against whosoever that is not founded, that person has the right to take away my own life. I think there are institutions where you can tell them to file a complaint against me, they call me up and I bring my proof as to what I said. But to outrightly take out someone's life, I think that it was sort of a showcase of power to let Cameroonians know that we are powerful and we can decide and determine who does and who are not. Asking as to whether we are in a jungle or not, I say yes, we are living in a jungle. Because when you look at the way Martinez was killed, mutilated, sodomized and all that, and then thrown into the public, it was an indirect way again of passing across the message, not only to his other colleagues, the journalists, but to the Cameroonian public as a whole. Know that if you see our affairs and you want to talk about it, you will end like Martinez. That to me was another message they were passing across directly to the Cameroonian audience. But unfortunately, like I read someone saying somewhere, not every blood that you suck is sweet. Martinez's blood has turned out to be very, very bitter, and I want to think that whether they like it or not, some people are going to pay the price. All what I can rather pray for is that the justice system should follow its due course right till the end, and that all those who are connected to this affair, from far or near, they should make sure that they are all picked and they all answer to their crimes. Because the few who have been picked up so far, there are revelations that have been made already. We know of whistleblowers in this country, some out of the country, who even before Martinez was picked up, started announcing ahead of time, secure this man's life because something is about to happen to him. But like Professor rightly said, the security agencies, officers in this country, they were slow in action. Now, he was followed up, he was picked up, he was killed. But now, there are revelations we are still getting from some of the whistleblowers and all whatnot, giving us names of persons that were from far or near related or connected to this issue. So we want to think that if the justice system in this country should follow its due course, I'm afraid we still have many more persons, some of them barons in this regime, who are going to fall. But now you understand that that is the type of government that one man in the name of the head of state, that's Mr. Biapol, has, I would say, has incarnated for 40 years, because it is his government, it is his regime. And some of these people we are talking about, you find people who have been there for decades upon decades. We are talking about state institutions, right, where some people, perhaps appointed, who are given the office to manage institutions, have taken them as a private something. That's what I'm saying. We have camps, cartels that have, should I say, have taken control over institutions. If not, if all these institutions are state-owned institutions, how do we therefore explain that an institution like that in charge of external research or investigation or whatnot, that from from its head to its immediate deputy and maybe some of the agents, they should be involved in a crime of this magnitude? How do we explain such a thing in a country that is said to be democratic, in a state of law and all whatnot?
And that is yet to be clearly established and confirmed by the investigations that are going on, even though we already have a confession from
the deputy
Colonel Danwi. And of course, now, as a human right defender, human right activist, how can you qualify these kind of heinous crimes that we are seeing in Cameroon today? What happened to Martinez Zogo and the journalist Ola Bebe has also been happening to many Cameroonians in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, both in the national armed forces and civilians. These extrajudicial killings, these are actions that are contrary to national and international legal instruments, including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in its Article 3, 5, 19, that are being violated outright.
Okay, Mr. Babila, thank you once more. Permit me start with a little observation of what Prof said here. Well, I heard Prof made mention of the fact that in fact, what happened to Martinez Zogo is not something that had been expecting or to happen in Cameroon, especially a journalist, because he says that there's a freedom of the press in Cameroon, citing the fact that there are so many media institutions. Permit me say that what happened to Martinez Zogo is not the first time some such thing happened in Cameroon. We have recorded so many such things as such. Journalists in Cameroon are being targeted in one way or the other. We have the case of Samuel Zimbabwe, who was arrested in Southwest region, tortured and detained incommunicado for a long time before later on being killed. That up to date, we have not yet seen his dead body. We don't know where the body is found. And again, journalism has tended to it seems to me now, it seems to be a crime in Cameroon, because we realize that there are so many journalists in Cameroon who are being detained, who are currently being detained, especially with the connection to Anglophone crisis, and others who are in one way or the other denouncing some acts of corruption in Cameroon. And apart from that, it's very clear that human rights defenders or journalists are suffering the acts of reprisal in our country. So let me say that freedom of expression in Cameroon is still, freedom of expression in Cameroon or freedom of the press is still very far. First of all, maybe because these journalists are not being protected. The regime in place is not protecting journalists. And we come into your question. Let me say that what is happening to Martinez Zogo, and that has happened to other Cameroonians in the northwest and southwest region of Cameroon, the major problem, what I know, is that it's because of impunity. There is a lot of impunity within the culture of impunity within the regime itself. Because when something as such happens, the government is supposed to make sure that the competent authority carry out proper investigation to arrest all those who are involved in such acts and prosecute them accordingly. Because that's the only way of scaling those who are behind such acts. Because when somebody does something and the person is not investigated and arrested, it will give the opportunity for another person to go ahead doing the same thing, thinking that they are the one that owns the law. Especially when you have connection within the government, because sometimes some of these people tell you that nobody can do anything to me. So some people saying that, so this one has committed a crime, I've done this, I've done this, nothing will happen. And you go to justice. Sometimes when you go to justice, since the judicial system is first of all very corrupt, you go there with there's a person, you have someone or something happened, they call you there, you go there and try to corrupt the institution. So I'm first of all saying that at least what happened to Cameroon is just let me say like a relief. I pray that, because what has just happened, because the kind of personality I've been arrested in this particular case of Martinez Zogo, in fact, it's really encouraging. It's a sign. I just pray it's a new dawn for Cameroon, because I think that if this continue this way, even though these people are still suspects that are still pending investigation, that investigation is still going on, I pray that the government should make sure that the competent authorities should make sure that these guys, all those that are suspected to be in connect to be have in one way or the other contributed in the assassination of Martinez Zoko are arrested and prosecuted accordingly, so as to scare other people from doing such things. And with regard, it's regrettable because Cameroon is a state of law, and our country has signed so many international and regional treaties and conventions to protect journalists, protect citizens, and all the rest. But in the Anglophone region, Northwest and Southwest region, it's regrettable to say, it's unfortunate to say that citizens of those regions, unarmed citizens, are being killed on a daily basis by defense and security forces without any justification on a problem that ought to have been solved. That's the problem that can easily be solved by the government. It seems as if some people, especially the war entrepreneurs, those who are within the government and benefiting a lot from what is happening in Norway and South region, are taking the country hostage and does not want that the crisis should be resolved, so that they can continue benefiting from what they are benefiting in the, as a result of the conflict. Meanwhile, citizens are dying, even virtually on a daily basis. We have either civilians who are being killed by separatist fighters or by the defense and security forces. We have dwellings, properties of civilians that are being destroyed on a daily basis. Whether it's a civilian that's being killed, or it's a member of the separatist armed group, or it's a member of the defense and security forces, they are all Cameroonians. We cannot be taking the life of Cameroonians to sacrifice on a problem that we can easily solve without any problem. Because this issue we have continued to say is that this is an ideological problem. What is happening in the North and Southwest region, Cameroon, is an ideological problem. And you cannot kill an ideological problem with the use of violence. And it's only dialogue that can solve this problem.
We'll come to that shortly. And now, Prof, preliminary investigations have revealed that there's a probability that the intelligence services of this country were involved in the killing of Martinez Zoko, especially with the confession of the colonel. When security services, intelligence services of a nation are linked to such terrible crimes, what do we read within the lines about the safety of citizens, even the safety of the President of the Republic?
Okay, let me say that what has happened to Martinez Zoko is very unfortunate. But nonetheless, it shows that nobody is above the law. As you can see from what is happening to the big tycoons, the big administrative officials who have already been summoned by the police and the gendarmerie. So it means that nobody is above the law. And you cannot take the law into your own hands. That's what it means. The other thing that I would like to say, and I will answer your question shortly, is that many things have been done and are still being done in order to curb corruption and the embezzlements of public funds. Many former ministers are in prisons. Many former high officials are in prisons. And everything seems to indicate that many others will go to prison. Okay? And so, the question you are asking is,
about how come of the state?
How come those who are supposed to take care of the state security seems to have been involved in what happened to Martinez Zoko? Okay, I'm very careful about this because we don't know yet the results of the investigations. What we know is what has been said by the journalist, and nothing official has been said yet. Okay. You see,
maybe apart from the confessions of Colonel Danwi?
In the administrative law, there is what they call the theory of separated acts. Administrative law. The theory of separated acts. It means that you could be a journalist here at Equinoxe, but if you go home and on your way home you kill somebody, Equinoxe will not be linked to your personal actions. It is not because you are responsible for an organization like a secret service organization or a public security organization that if you are involved in criminality, that it is the organization that you are heading that is responsible for it. No, it is not responsible for it. Be you a minister, be you the delegate general of a public service, a public security organization, the organization did not send you to go and take part in the killing of a journalist. Okay? But there is something underlying that is very disturbing, okay? Which is, and I understand what your question is, how do people like that get to be appointed to positions like that? It is very disturbing. That is, if you are in charge of public security, if you are in charge of the security of the country, how do you get involved with criminals? It is a very good question. And it is not for us to ask the questions. If it is established that somebody was in charge of public security, somebody was in charge of the security of the state, was involved in the killing of Martinez Zogo, that person will have to answer its acts individually. It will not tarnish the image of the structure for which he was working. Okay? And it is the responsibility of the state to make sure that those who are appointed to such positions are people who cannot commit such acts.
But when we know that in the security domain,
yes,
there is what we call loyalty, which is like a very important rule, a golden rule.
Yes.
Loyalty.
Yes.
Loyalty to the state, loyalty to their assignments, loyalty to the state institutions and so on. And then when we see those who are supposed to be loyal and they seem not to be loyal, isn't it a point of concern, a call for concern for Cameroonians who are asking to know if intelligence services of this country have been hijacked by an individual?
No, it's a point for concern. If indeed it is established that security officials in Cameroon were involved, okay, we have to be very careful.
Of course.
Because we don't know yet what the investigations are going to show, okay? But the fact that they have been summoned by the police and the gendarmerie is already a very strong indication that no matter who you are, if you are responsible, you will be summoned by the judicial system. All right? And that the state will not cover you. The state will not cover you. That is an indication. Okay? It is also an indication that nobody is above the law. Nobody is above the law. Be you the richest man, be you the poorest man, be you in charge of secret services, be you in charge of the police or the gendarmerie, if you go and you commit atrocious criminal acts, they are not going to condemn the structure for which you are working. They will condemn you as an individual. Okay? So for the time being, it has not been proven that the state of Cameroon is responsible for that. Okay? It has not been proven that. But we have to be, all the same, we should be very careful, because we have to wait for the results of the investigation. Because what we know about these facts, or about what happened to Martinez, is only what was reported in the social media, or what was written by the journalists.
Investigations by journalists
by journalists. By human rights activists. Human rights activists.
And of
so
course,
we should wait for the judicial system to take the floor and tell us exactly what happened. Because that's what usually happens elsewhere. When we have a case like this, right?
But something that the investigations was supposed to have started before the intervention of the head of state, because the investigation going on now by the police and the national gendarmerie was instructed by the head of state.
Yes.
But what happened before that? Why the Attorney General to the Central Court of Appeal?
Don't know what prompted the head of state to get into action.
And some analysts are thinking that
it is probably the work of the administration that provided the head of state with some information, and that prompted his action. So we cannot say that the government or the administration did nothing. We don't know yet. Because the head of state...
That is what another school of thought is saying.
No,
that
the head of state
had to come in because those who were supposed to do their job didn't do it.
No.
Or probably didn't do much. Or probably
we
didn't do much.
We cannot say that. The head of state is very well informed. And he will not tell you who informed him or what structure informed him. I am conjecturing that the head of state might have received information from structures that are working for him, and that is what prompted him into getting into action. Okay?
Right.
So we cannot conclude that nothing was done before the head of state did something. Many things are being done that we don't see, we don't really see fast, but they are being done.
Engineer Elvis, the head of state has instructed investigations, and the investigations are ongoing now, and several persons have already been arrested. What's your appraisal of the procedure in terms of time? It took about 2 weeks for the investigation going on now to start, and it has been going on a series of persons, notably the prime suspects, including Amugu Belinga, director of the external research arm of security intelligence, and of course other personalities who are allegedly involved, or who are said to have taken part in the killing of Martinez Zogo. What's your appraisal of the judicial, the investigations going on?
Well, I would say again that with respect to the timing or the time, I think that there was already somehow, I would say there was a problem already somewhere along the line, given that, like you rightly say, investigation started somehow a little late, you see. And we know very well that when the Danway, for instance, was heard of, when he makes mentions of where the killing actually took place, and then you see up to what time they went there to maybe carry out some investigation around that environment, I want to think that that was more than enough time given to those who must have perpetrated the crime, if some were still on the run, to maybe go back there and try to actually wipe off all possible traces in that environment or whatsoever thing. So in other words, to me, the justice or the security officers in this country in charge of investigations should have been very, very swift and prompt in their actions, but that was not what Cameroonians observed. Secondly, when you ask my appraisal as to some of the people that have been arrested so far, and I want, yes, I started by saying here already in my talk when I took the floor that so far we appreciate what is happening, but given that we are a people, or should I say I am someone who somehow remains very, very skeptical as far as the justice system in this country is concerned, I will simply keep wishing that it should follow its due course till the end. And that, like Professor is insisting that no one is above the law in this country, we hope therefore that no one is actually going to be above the law, and that no one is going to interpose himself between this case and what is happening, so that all those who are connected in it from far or near are picked up. Remember that for now we are looking particularly at those who maybe killed Martinez. Maybe that will be a case now on its own, I don't know, but by the time we are done with that, they will now go back to why was he killed in the first place. We know that he revealed information that became disturbing to some people, and so they decided to take away his life. It means that there are some people that even if in the case of the killing directly they were not involved, they may certainly be involved in another aspect of it. Maybe they were the ones who either gave out information to Martinez, or they simply believed that the information Martinez was leaking out to the public was eventually going to implicate them too in one way or the other. You know, when we talk about, for instance, the budgetary lines, which was what Martinez was criticizing, one person getting almost, I would say, almost all the money from the different lines, 94, 57, 56, and all whatnot, you will realize it is a public line where maybe every Cameroonian could maybe have access to. If you have a convincing project that your project maybe can benefit the public, good and fine. But for one individual, like we have even seen some information circulated on social media, I don't even know how authentic that is, but if that happens to be true, that all what we see circulating are all public contracts that one man benefited from those particular budgetary lines, then you understand that perhaps they had every reason to want to silence Martinez, because, like I say, he became a nuisance and was going to expose them, or had even exposed them. Unfortunately, it is too late, because the process is ongoing, and like I say, I keep saying that I remain somehow skeptical about the justice system. That's why I keep insisting that I wish that for once justice in Cameroon would follow its due course. And I think Professor spoke something and spoke in line with what I said, that we are talking about here, we are talking here about state institutions given to some individuals to handle, but where we have the impression that some of them transform it into a private organization, a private institution, where they could use that institution's finances, use that institution's resources to want to carry out actions, maybe not in the name of the entire regime or government, but to safeguard their own personal interests. And I think it is problematic.
Now, when we have the head of the intelligence services of a country, a former presidential guard commander who is now in charge of the security of one of the prime suspects, and he himself is a prime suspect, and we have these personalities in the security corridors of the republic tagged or linked to such a crime. What can we read within the lines as far as the security of the country is concerned?
Again, here I will give my subjective reading of it all. No one in Cameroon is secure. That's what I will say. Because from every indication, they have or had infiltrated almost every sector in administration. And of course, you know very well that if someone could infiltrate and then worst of all get right up to security, where he has insiders and they can use agents from that institution, security, to be able to carry out private actions and whatnot, then like I said before, you understand nobody is secured. And it comes back to what I earlier said, that the spectacular killing and public demonstration of Martinez's corpse was an indirect or maybe even a direct message they were passing across, not only to journalists but to Cameroonians, to rights activists and whatnot. If you see something that we do and you do not like it, keep quiet. Because if you talk and we lay hands on you, remember that we even saw on social media a list of journalists that were already earmarked to be eliminated too. Again, I don't know how authentic that one was too, but we say there were people who had been earmarked. Now, of course, one may be tempted to think that it was authentic because immediately after Martinez, Jean-Jacques followed. So that is to tell you that the security in this country, to me, is very, very porous. Because as of now, we don't know to what extent they have been able to infiltrate the system. And of course, we don't know exactly, even as we talk now, who could be the next. Because if you can imagine that after discovering Martinez's body, it did not still even cause these people to even refrain. They still went as far as killing the next journalist again. Then you understand that these are people who are so heartless and are very, very determined to maybe get to wherever they want to get to.
And we continue to remind ourselves that investigations are still going on, and those who committed the act are yet to be clearly and properly identified by the competent services, that is the judicial services that are competent in that matter.
And we continue to wish us for that.
And now, you're a human rights defender, and you're fighting for the rights of people, the common man, and just everybody. Now, when you look at these crimes that have been committed, and then you look at those who are tagged as prime suspects, those who have been arrested and those who have not yet been arrested, because there's also the Minister of Justice who has been cited in that case, but he has not been arrested like the others. And there are other personalities, prime personalities, who ought to be functioning in the same perspective like you, to protect the rights of the people. What do you think about the situation of the human right situation of this country? Because we talked about the impact of this on the image of the country.
Okay, thank you once more, Mr. Babila. Beginning with your little time, let me make some brief observation again. I'll start with what Prof said here concerning the, and if you mentioned something like administrative law, trying to quote something like the responsibility of an individual, differentiate between responsibility as an individual and the responsibility of the state. Pedmi says that in terms of with regard to human rights, international human legal instrument, it's very clear that when you use and your office, when you are a state agent and you commit a crime, it's assumed that you are committing a crime in the name of the state, and it is for the state now to make sure that the person who involved in the crime is arrested and prosecuted, and on due process, the person is sanctioned accordingly. And when the state will fail to make sure that the person involved in the accused on the crime is prosecuted accordingly, even that the state of Cameroon, the state will be responsible for the crime, because the person who committed the crime, like the case, the present case we are talking about, they used like something like they used a gun. That gun is a gun that is bought by the state. They have used the state or other apparatus and all the rest to make sure that they commit the crime. And the other one, let me make Mr. Elvis mention here something saying that the procedure seems to be very slow to him, the procedure concerning the investigation. But to the best of my own knowledge, I don't think the procedure is slow. It's just that it seems to me as if the crime is many people are connected in the crime, so they are taking a lot of time to carry out a proper investigation. I believe that the investigators are doing their job well, because you can bear with me that just yesterday we informed that even some crime suspects were picked up again. So it seems as if through the investigation, many other people are still being linked to the crime. That's why this investigator need to be given a lot of time to make sure that they are carried on their investigation properly. For that, I applaud the government of Cameroon for this for the initiative taken already. But because I think this is first of its kind that such personalities are being accused or are being arrested and are undergoing questioning to search for their alleged involvement in something as such.
But the fear of Cameroonians, Amadu, is that several investigations have been opened in Cameroon before, and they took a lot of time, and at the end of the time, we didn't have any result until today. We don't even have results of some of those investigations.
No, actually, this one is true, because especially for someone like me who was actually actively working in regard to the connection to the Anglophone crisis, we have so many cases of human rights violations that have been perpetrated by defense and security forces. Let's take, for example, the case of the Gambu massacre. For more than 2 years today, we are still waiting for the verdict. The government have not heard about the verdict, and so many other cases as such. When the defense and security forces target civilians, maybe the spokesperson of the Ministry of Defense will come out with a press release to inform Cameroonians, to inform the world that actually these people committed the crime and they have been arrested and are detained pending investigation. But at the end, no investigation, nothing will happen. So that's the kind of thing that's scaring Cameroon, because very now, what is happening now, we are praying that this should be a very good beginning, because there's always possibility for change. That's why we keep advocating for change in Cameroon. I know that change is possible, whatsoever be the case. We know the rate of bad governance, the rate of corruption, and everything, but we believe that one day, with the help of Cameroonians, things will change in Cameroon. And concerning the prime suspects, as we were asking about, and what I think about the human rights situation in Cameroon, people say that even everywhere is believed that it is known that the human rights situation in Cameroon is very, very deplorable. It's very deplorable. Hardly will one day pass by without us seeing somebody being arrested and detained illegally, or somebody being tortured, or somebody being killed, or dwellings being destroyed, be in the northwest and southwest and the other parts of the countries. As I said here, I continue to insist that our major problem in this country is the reign of impunity. If the government can set an example on these particular people now who are accused of committing this crime, the crime of the killing of Martinez Zoko, I think it will go a long way to prevent any such thing from happening. And they should equally make sure that these defense and security forces who are involved in gross human rights violation in the northwest and southwest region are arrested and prosecuted, so as to scare others. Because I believe that had it been most of these defense and security forces who have been involved in killings of civilians, unarmed civilians, or destruction of dwellings are arrested and prosecuted, I don't think human rights violation would have still been at the peak, up to this level. Even though when we were talking about it, some people comes out trying to tell us that we have the defense the separatist fighters who are doing the same thing. It is true that the separatist fighters are doing the same thing, but we recognize the separatist fighters are a group of persons that they don't have that legitimate power. Like the government of Cameroon is a recognized institution that have that legitimate power to take action and do something, and it's left for the government. And even the crimes that are committed by the separatists, the government of Cameroon need to have done something special to make sure that the separatists are arrested and prosecuted, so as to scare other people from going about committing such crime. And when the government will remain silent, and I said, it means that the government will take the full responsibility of everything.
And talking about silence, we are still waiting to know what happened to the government, the delegates that were arrested or were picked up in the Indian division. It's been more than 2 years now. One was killed and the other 5 Nobody knows what's happening to them.
Including in the case
no
of
government
the
authority,
president of Northwest House
the
of Chiefs.
president of the Northwest House of Chiefs.
Kevin,
no
nothing has been
government
said
statement about it.
Recently, 1 year after he came on, I saw a video circulating on social media of which he was trying to the government of Cameroon to do everything possible so as to help him out of the place. I seem as if the person who is keeping him there gave him some conditions. And maybe like saying that because the family of the separatist writer who is detaining him, who is still detaining him in captivity, were equally arrested by the government of Cameroon. It's very funny to know in Cameroon that the responsibility, that the criminal responsibility is now turning from individual to global something or family issue. An individual will commit a crime and go about arresting the whole family of the person. It's really shameful for the government of Cameroon. I don't know the kind of image these people are giving us, image of Cameroon that are given to international community. Because criminal responsibility remains personal and it's very clear on the Cameroon Criminal Procedure Code.
Let us go to the newsstands right now. We're going to see what the newspapers reported this week. Immaculate Fogwe with the press review.
According to The Voice, suspects in ruthless elimination of Amplitude FM journalist Martinez Zogo have been revealed. Media tycoon Amogo Belinga and others are in gendarmerie dungeons. The Guardian Post exclaims, Noon division, Bamon and Tika clash degenerates. Magba Palace invaded, Cameroon's flag brought down, traditional rulers' cars set ablaze and 3 Tikas kidnapped. Newswatch reports, transporters plan to increase transportation fare following the increase in fuel prices. The Herald Tribune says, rising cost of living, trade unions threaten to down tolls while giving government tough conditions. As reported by the Post, government's 5.2% salary increase is to mask price hikes and avert protest, says an economist, Etienne Ekiachek. The Guardian Post exclaims, senatorial election, mighty SDF at mercy of President Paul Biya. According to the paper, it will take the head of state's generosity for the SDF to have even a single appointed senator at the upper house of parliament. The media reports, senatorial election 2023, David versus Goliath battle between SDF and CPDM in the Northwest region. The Horizon exclaims, how Southwest CPDM violated Biya's instructions. The Voice Weekender, senatorial elections 2023, CPDM, one party shows unravels extreme chance or presidential appointment decides fate for legendary SDF party. Another edition of the Garden Post says, Prince Doki Mukete unearths genesis of Bafo Bakundo fracas. Municipal Update exclaims, Eden Media Group CEO Chief Zaki Zongandembo dies. Another edition of Municipal Update says, government to get 21 billion francs CFA to boost Northwest and Southwest reconstruction.
Thank you, Immaculate Fogwe. We are still with our guest, Professor EDMOND, BILOA International University, Don Jine Elvis NJINE, politician from the Popular Action Party, and then human rights defender Amadu TARNTE. Professor, let me come to you now. The unfolding of the investigations, do we have indications that there is light that's going to shine at the end of the tunnel? That's not going to be like the other investigations that were opened before, and at the end of the day we didn't have the results?
Well, I don't think that there is an investigation that has ever been like the one we are following up now. I don't think so. I mean, to show you that this thing here is a very big thing, is a very big event. You could imagine the head of the intelligence service in a country being summoned by the security forces, being summoned by the judicial system, and being detained to see how the process will unfold. So it's nothing like this has ever happened before. Nothing like this has ever happened before. So I am pretty optimistic about the outcome of the investigation. And I say that we have to be very cautious about the things that we are saying, because a journalist can report one thing today, and what the journalist reported today can be denied by the person that the journalist is quoting. All right? You see that in courts very often, right? That somebody can be prosecuted and say, okay, I don't like Elvis NJINE, and then the next day he comes and say, no, I love Elvis NJINE. Okay, after he has talked to his counselor. So we have to be very careful. What we have read in the newspaper may change during the course of the investigation. Okay? So we need to be very careful about it. And the investigation must proceed very cautiously. Because we have seen cases where when the investigation goes very fast, and then at the end, when the matter goes to court, there is very little material to hang on. All right? That's because those who conducted the investigation were not very careful. All right? They were very fast they jumped to conclusions very fast. And I think that is why we have to be very cautious. We have to let the forces that be, we have to let those who are conducting the investigation proceed cautiously, and we have to wait for the official statements about the investigation. Okay? Because we cannot give a blank check to journalists and say everything that journalists say is true. No. After all, journalists are investigating just like the police, just like the gendarmerie, just like the civil society, just like the human rights activists, and so on and so forth.
And we are reporting facts.
You are reporting
facts.
You are saying that you are reporting facts.
Facts.
But sometimes
only facts.
Sometimes those facts are disputed. You know that. Those facts are disputed. So we have to be very careful.
All right.
We should not jump to conclusion and say this minister was involved, this minister was cited. Being cited doesn't mean that you are guilty. It doesn't mean that you are guilty. We have to be very cautious.
It's very correct, but it is factual to say that he was cited. It is factual
to
say that he is a prime suspect.
It is a fact
it is factual
that does not
to say that he was arrested.
It is a fact that does not lead to condemnation.
Right. Very correct.
You remember the case of my distinguished colleague, who spent 2 years in prisons, and then he was released free of charge. Free of charge. And that's because the investigation was not very careful. Okay? Because when the consulars start asking questions, right, the judge is at pains in trying to provide answer to those questions.
And while you are very confident about the ongoing investigation,
I'm very confident about the investigation.
The United Nations Human Rights Arm has also taken note of what the President of the Republic is doing, his involvement, his instructions for the investigations that are going on and those who have been arrested, but they are still asking or saying that it is important to ensure independent and effective investigations. When the United Nations Human Rights Arm begins to say this,
I don't know why they are asking for independent investigation. That means they don't trust the investigation of Cameroon. As a matter of fact, those who have been summoned up by the judicial system, they can take foreign lawyers to defend them, right? They can take foreigners to defend them, okay? And once you have foreign lawyers to defend those who have been called up by the judicial system, it means that the system is free, okay? So I don't worry so much about it. I don't worry much about it. You see, in the world today, nothing is a secret. Nothing is a secret today, right? You saw what the journalist who works for Reporters Sans Frontières did. You saw what he did. He got some information before you who live in Cameroon got it. So I am not worried about the fact that they are going to hide some things. It is impossible to hide anything.
Whatever the case, we also had those information.
Yeah, but it's risky for them to publish it in Cameroon because of the situation.
The problem is not about the risk, but the problem is about doing verifications and being sure about it's not everything that we know that we publish.
Yes, that's true.
We have a responsibility, and we are here in Cameroon.
You have to check the information before you publish it, or before you broadcast it.
And so when the United Nations talk about independent and effective investigation, you mentioned the example of some persons who were arrested, detained, and later freed without charges, yes, and so on. But there are also a lot of issues about the independence of the judicial system, the independence of the judicial system, the independence of the National Gendarmerie, the independence of the police force, the independence of all those institutions in the different arms of the state.
It is not something, an issue that is specific to Cameroon. Everywhere you can talk about it. Everywhere you can talk about it. Huh? Have you not heard about the debate about the results of the presidential elections in the U.S.? Right? Okay, so I mean, but as far as Cameroon is concerned, those people who are sometimes who appears in courts, they can hire independent counsels. They can hire counsels that are foreigners, right? And I'm sure that even those who are likely to be in courts for the case we are talking about today, they have so much money that most likely they will have some foreign counselors. And once you have foreign counselors, it is difficult to hide something. It is very difficult to hide something. So I'm very confident that ultimately the truth will come out. The truth will come out. We should all be ready for the truth to come out. Okay? We should not base our judgments on assumptions that are not verified. And we should not be jumping to conclusions. Okay? We have to be very, very careful.
Engineer Elvis NJINE, can you reassure Cameroonians today that justice will not only be done, but will be seen to have been done?
In a regime where we have severally in the past been disappointed by this regime when it comes to matters of justice in this country. So I cannot take the risk here to want to assure Cameroonians that justice is going to follow its due course to the end as far as this particular case is concerned.
You don't have confidence in state institutions?
I told you from the beginning of this program, Mr. Beda, personally, I remain skeptical, in as much as we pray and hope that this may be the first time where we shall see an investigation carried out and it goes through successfully to the end, without which I remain very, very skeptical, because several cases like this have come up in the past. They said one or two things. We have seen situations where even state officials come out to acknowledge the fact that the state was involved in this or that act, but at the end of the day, we don't still get any concluding results that could be convincing to Cameroonians. So I am far from being the one who could sit here to want to reassure Cameroonians. Maybe Professor should be the one to do that and not me.
Amadu TARNTE is convinced that the investigators are doing their job.
And for questioning. So we just with this, I believe that the investigators are doing their best. At least we should calm down and give time for this investigator to do what they are doing, because with regard to this issue of independent investigation, why so other international organizations are calling for an independent investigation, or maybe the involvement of maybe some neutral person or the civil society organization or other organizations that are neutral in carrying out this investigation, is because they don't trust the government of Cameroon. And the government of Cameroon is not worth trust, because it's not worth to be trusted, because we have seen so many investigations as such, and the government end up trying to protect the barons of the regime who are involved in such heinous crimes, because including some other people, as well as some religious personalities, like the Archbishop and others in such investigation, they will carry out. I believe that if such is done, they can come out with a good investigation that will actually be satisfactory to not only to Cameroonian but to a good landscape to our judicial system, because we know what our judicial system is all about. We know that our judicial system is being manipulated, and first of all, the judicial system, there is no real separation of power, because what we know is that it's the executive that is controlling everything in Cameroon. So a judge will sit in court and you have all the facts and the evidence are presented before the judge, and so very soon when it's time for judgment, the judge will go out just to receive a phone call to hear how the judgment should go on, how he's supposed to proceed with everything. You do it like that just to satisfy this hierarchy, because we believe that they are the one that are supposed to tell him what to do, and if you don't follow what they are telling you to do, and you'll be tempted to lose your job, or they will do whatsoever to you, and you'll be the one to suffer. So one thing is that I keep saying that this one is a very good step forward that has been taken, because I know this is one of its kind, that such personalities have been arrested for just heinous crime in Cameroon, because so many such crimes have been committed, but never have we seen such high personalities being who are involved in such crime being arrested. So that's why we keep praying, and I keep believing that this time around things will change and the justice will take its place, and at the end, all those who are in one way or the other connected to the assassination of Martinez and other people and Ola Bebe will be prosecuted and will face the real trial and go to jail and equally feel to what they have been doing to other Cameroonians, because we believe that most of those that are involved, this is not their first time of committing such crime. We all know that very well. Some Cameroonians or some journalists in Cameroon have been forced to leave the country and go for exile only because of them. So others have only used their power within the regime to imprison others, and nobody have done anything. You go there, you remain there for a long time, but today is their own turn, just to tell them that there is time for everything. So that's why I equally believe that there is equally time for justice in Cameroon, and the right time is now.
The right time is now for justice in Cameroon. Professor, what's your take on the impact of all these on the image of the Republic of Cameroon?
Well, of course, nobody expected this to happen. But now that it has happened, I feel that it's even good for the image of Cameroon, because it shows that nobody is above the law. That
1 out of million cases.
Yes, but at least now it shows something.
The investigation is going on.
The investigation, yeah, the investigation is going on.
But the
investigation is going
about
on.
the crime.
About the crime.
Either the killing of the journalists or the killing of the civilians and members of the National Armed Forces, Security and Defense Forces in the Northwest and Southwest
what is
regions.
happening is an example that you cannot just kill a journalist and go free.
So they have been killing and going free.
You cannot just kill the journalist and go free. And this case is different, despite what Amadu is saying.
What is different on this case?
This case is very different.
Let him talk.
It's different with respect to the personalities that might have been involved.
No, all human beings are equal. We are in democratic estate. No, all human beings are equal.
Because I'm not sure that they were involved.
Please.
That is why I'm very careful about this.
They are still suspects.
They are still suspects. And nothing has been proven yet. Okay? But so far, it proves that you cannot just kill a journalist in Cameroon and feel that life will continue as usual. Okay? So this is a very good case that should serve as an example for everybody, should tell people that the freedom of the press is real, right? It is not because a journalist has said something about you that it is necessarily true and that you should worry about it until such time as you have been indicted for it. So, ultimately, I think it is good for the image of Cameroon, because this case shows that if you kill a journalist, even if you are even suspected or having taken part in the killing of a journalist, all right, you are likely to be summoned up by the judiciary system, and you are likely to go to the court, and you are likely to be judged. It's good because it shows that Cameroon is a democratic country where things like that are not tolerated.
Now that is the result of the crime. About the crime itself.
About the crime itself.
And the impact of the crime, the killing, the brutal killing of journalists and people in the Northwest and Southwest.
Hopefully the impact will be that such a thing doesn't happen again. Hopefully.
Yes, that's what I'm praying.
Hopefully the impact will be that
enough
such a thing does not happen again.
you're going to tell us what should be done in a short while for such things not to happen again. Yeah. Now, about the image of Cameroon, the killings have been going on, and our authorities have been going to the UN to say that Cameroon is a law-abiding country, respecting human rights, and all of those. Now these things that are happening.
Mr. Babila, you know late Batibi sung in one of his poems, The Beauty of Exile. He said, it is the beauty of your exile that has shown the world how ugly we have become. Same, I will say here, I think it is the beauty of Martinez's murder, his assassination, and that of other assassinations we have seen in this country, and the numerous human rights violations we have seen northwest, southwest so far, that has actually exposed Cameroon to the world to see how ugly we have become as a nation since our purported independence from 60 and particularly the last 40 years. So when we talk about the image that Cameroon gets at the end of the day, of course, it's a tarnished one. Because like we have said on this platform, you can't imagine state institutions that are supposed to guarantee the security of persons, their property, and the integrity of the nation as a whole, that the people leading those institutions are rather the ones from the heads and their deputies who are prime suspects in such a crime. It tells you just how rotten the system is in this country. Right. Secondly, we are talking about barons in the regime who are suspects.
They were not working for the institutions.
Prof, let us be factual, let us be honest to ourselves. The fact that...
Please, Engineer Elvis has
if you commit a crime out of the... it doesn't mean that it is the institution that...
prompted you to commit a crime. What I want us to understand here is this. What I want us to understand here is this.
Yes, Engineer Elvis,
if the head of state is accused of a certain crime, you cannot immediately want to tell me that you will separate his personality from the institution he heads.
Of course.
That's what we are saying.
You have to.
We have to. By the time you hear his name, you first of all see the nation Cameroon. That's what we are saying. It will take time for this country and government to want to separate the individuals and their action from the institutions they were heading. But the truth is that each person who hears it, be it nationally or internationally, you first of all see the state of Cameroon as bad as it is. And we are saying that it is something that has been going on like that for at least 40 years today. Yeah. It is not the first case. It has just happened that maybe Cameroonians have mounted so much pressure this time around and they have been forced or obliged to act. But many such cases have happened before.
No, there's no exceptional case.
Does it mean that Martinez's life was exceptional?
Let's
Gentlemen, can we say that Martinez's life was exceptional as opposed to Wazizi's own case, or maybe Bishop Bala or any other person, or
all the same thing? They have
a crisis.
No, all right, please.
Let's have some order.
Bishop Bala, for instance.
Gentlemen, can we have some order? Amadu TARNTE, go on.
What about Bishop Bala?
Was he killed by the state?
Please, let's have some order, please, so that we can. Let's have some order so that we can proceed.
Bishop Bala was, I don't know whether he was killed.
Okay, is Martinez killed by the state?
How do you know that it is the state who killed?
Is Martinez killed by the state?
Please, gentlemen, let us have some order.
Those are different cases.
Let us have some order. Let us have some order so that this discussion can educate Cameroonians. Amadu TARNTE, quickly about the image of Cameroon and these the consequences of these crimes on the image of Cameroon.
We permit me to say first of all that Cameroon has always been a very dangerous zone for journalists. It's very clear. If you look at the statistics on the whole world, you realize that Cameroon is one of the most dangerous places for journalists. That's why we keep seeing journalists being arrested on a daily basis and detained. So the government of Cameroon, the international community always have a very bad image to Cameroon concerning journalists and human rights defenders. Such things will give a very bad image in so many ways. First of all, it will prevent, let me say, investors from coming to Cameroon because they don't trust the country again because of what is happening. It will prevent even the people who come for leisure, tourists. You prevent tourists from coming to Cameroon, because they know that they are not safe. Cameroon is not a safe place for anybody, because we see killing every day, on every one day or the other, in the southern littoral, in the west region, in the Yaoundé, and all the rest. And these things continues for over and over and over and over again. So such things is giving a very bad image to Cameroon. I want the government of Cameroon to start by now, by what is happening now, to make sure that all these people who have been arrested, they are investigated, and make sure that we have really justice for Martinez Zogo once and for all, so that such things should never repeat itself again. I know that it's always late. Yes, it's late, but it might have been late, but thank God. Once and for all, we're having something positive today with regard to regime concerning the case of
that's definitely going to be part of the solution, but we're going to take some interviews right now, and when we come back, we'll talk more about the solutions. What should be done now to ensure that such crimes shouldn't happen again?
Since the starting of this crisis, if someone has paid the high tribute is SDF, because we paid a lot. They kidnapped our parliamentarians, our senators, even our chairman. The other day they even go and burn out, attack his home in Tarikon. We are targeted. I will say that. I'm not here to say that. We are targeted. But I'm so surprised that every time is our parliamentarian senators who have been attacked, and CPGM senators and elected members had not been attacked. And we are so surprised. You have Senator Kemende. They attack him and they also kill him. All Cameroonians saw Kemende defend the Afrophone cause in Senate. How can we explain that?
Section 93 of the Criminal Procedure Code is very, very clear. It says that such a search could be done with the use of a warrant and could be done without a warrant in cases of a crime, especially when committed flagrant delicto.
The right to live is the right that is protected by many texts and rules and regulations in the world, being in Cameroon by our constitution, which simply means no life is supposed to be suppressed, no matter the case and no matter what happened.
Those were interviews of the week. Professor, I'll start with you very quickly. What should be done now?
Cameroonians should be educated, because Cameroonian citizens act, and some people might have the feeling that it is the whole country that acts like that. Okay, it is just, the more you think about it, the more you ask yourself whether we have the same brains in the head. I mean, you as a journalist, you can criticize me or criticize any political figure. It doesn't mean that the power that be believe in what you are saying. It doesn't mean that the judicial system believes in what you are saying.
What should be done now?
What it means is that
what should be done now?
I'm going to conclude very fast.
Yes.
Martinez Zogo and others have been talking about this for a long time, and nothing has ever happened. Why should some people decide that they don't want to hear about Martinez Zogo anymore? Martinez Zogo could have continued to speak and nothing would have changed. Right? So it is that is what democracy is all about. That is what democracy is all about. We should accept that people have opinions different from ours. The second lesson we have to learn from this, and I've already said it, is that the action by the present government are likely to convince people that things like that should never happen again. That is, you cannot just take the law into your hands, right? Nobody is above the law. There are institutions in charge of the law. Those are the ones that should take care of things like that. If you complain about Martinez Zogo, you go to court.
you file a complaint, all right, and the court will summon him and ask him whether what he's saying is true. So let's hope that from all of this, the result will be that no journalist should be killed again, and that things like that should not continue, so as not to tarnish the image of the country.
Right. Engineer Elvis NJINE, what should be done to ensure that such crimes shouldn't happen again? Journalists shouldn't be killed in this way, shouldn't be killed in any way. Civilians, members of the National Armed Forces shouldn't be killed the way they are being killed at random in the northwest and southwest regions of the country.
I would not want to repeat the things that Professor has just proposed. I would simply say, if there is something to be done first, we should also ensure at our own level as a country that our justice system is independent. They should have the free hand such that when there is an issue that concerns them, they are able to carry out independent investigations and they drive the right culprits for judgment and prosecution without any interference from the executive or whatsoever thing. Secondly, I will call on Cameroonians too. We should learn to understand that as a people, we are brothers, we are sisters, and we must learn to stand against any form of injustice anywhere in the country. Because injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. When there is injustice, like what we are talking about here now, people should learn to be unanimous. Because we have seen in this particular case too, people who rather go on air and they want to give you the impression that it's an affair that doesn't concern them, and so there is no reason why people should talk about it. No, we cannot talk about human life, and of course, murder in the way we saw it, and some people think that it's a normal affair or it's an affair that doesn't have anything to do with them, and so no, we call on Cameroonians, we should learn to be one another's keeper. If you find any form of injustice anywhere, anyhow, it is your place, it's your responsibility, it's your duty to be able to denounce it. Thirdly, I will say we need to learn to listen. Professor said something. Martinez could have even kept talking and nothing would still change. But there are some authorities, institutions that they need to listen. Because I'm sure, with respect to some of the whistleblowing that we got, even before he got, should I say, captured or whatsoever thing, if they had listened to what some of the whistleblowers had announced before, the state should have even provided him some minimal security over his own life. Because I think as individuals, as citizens, it is the state's responsibility to safeguard our own our lives. But I think that is something that we did not get. So to avoid such things from happening, I think those are some of the things that need to be done. But most importantly, anyone caught in any act of such violence or injustice against any other human or against the state, we must ensure that such people are called to book and that they pay the crimes according to the laws of the state. I think there and only then will some people therefore refrain from thinking such.
Amadu TARNTE?
Yeah, thank you once more, Mr. Gavila. I'll start by just like Mr. Bane said something here that the state would have provided minimum security to Martinez Zogo when this incident started. When they started denouncing that he was being threatened. So how can you expect the state to provide security to somebody that is being targeted by the same state? It's impossible. So with regard to the way forward, I will look at the way forward in two perspectives. With regard to the way forward in the Anglophone region. In regard to the way forward of journalists in Cameroon and the Anglophone region, with regard to the situation of journalists
targeted by some members of government.
With regard to the journalists, I will first of all say that they will first of all end impunity. I keep saying it, first of all end impunity in Cameroon. Secondly, they will make sure that freedom of information and freedom of the press is guaranteed in Cameroon. But one of the greatest problems why most of these journalists are being targeted, because the government does not want to exercise the freedom of information, provide information when something happens. They don't want to give information to these journalists, thereby forcing these journalists to go back and take based now on the either hearsay or whistleblowers who give them information on the background. And when you take the information now and publish, since the state never wanted to give you the information, you'll be forced to be targeted. I equally say that the journalists in Cameroon need to equally do everything possible to be professional, because there are some journalists that are not professional. What they are doing is no longer journalism. And I pray to the National Communication Council to make sure that it change its strategy and modus operandi and make sure that it acts or it sanctions journalists based on all the journalists without any exception. Not that the sanctions should be selective, while you see other journalists who are going against the ethics and deontology of profession and nothing is done. But with regard to the Anglophone crisis, I will say that the government of Cameroon will best of all do everything possible for the conflicting parties to do everything possible to declare a bilateral ceasefire, followed by the release of all those who have been arrested and detained in connection to the crisis, and an inclusive and sincere dialogue That's the only way out of the crisis. As I just said, that we cannot solve an ideological problem with the use of violence. It's very clear, and the government have tried and failed, and we all know that be the separatists or the government or the state and the state force cannot win the war in the north and south region. It's only through an amicable dialogue, a sincere and a neutral dialogue, and that's why we was happy when we recently when the Melanie Joly, the minister of external relations in Canada, came out with a recommendation saying that it was a decision taken by both parties, the conflicting parties. It is rather unfortunate that a few days after, it's frustrating to hear that the government of Cameroon was trying to deny that he was not part of it. Meanwhile, Melanie made it very clear that she is still in contact with those Cameroonians, those that the government sent, and they are still responding positively, saying that they should go ahead with the initiative. So I pray that the government of Cameroon to make sure that she embrace this Canada initiative for us to seek a lasting solution to this crisis. These are Cameroonians that are dying, and the government is turning blind eyes. For 6 years today, thousands of civilians and people, the defense forces and the separatists have been killed. And what are we benefiting from this? What are we? There's nothing we are benefiting from this. At least we are all Cameroonians. That one is true. And these people, if the government sees that when you have a child and the child is crying that it's not, everything is not going on, and you don't look at the situation, what do you expect the child to do? So,
all right, Amadu. Engineer Elvis, I come back to you for some few words of the way out as far as this specific issue of the Anglophone crisis is concerned.
Well, I think dialogue is the only way out. Dialogue. And when we talk about dialogue here, we wish that the government of Cameroon, at least for once, would commit to dialogue. Because, at least for once, with this Canadian initiative, we were able for once to see almost all the separatist arms come together to accept or endorse the idea of the Canadian initiative, because the question has always been, with whom do we dialogue? But if for once they accepted to come into dialogue, let the government on its own part to also commit, and then we begin from there and see how far it goes. But if they are coming up to the table today, and now the government is the one backing up from the dialogue, then I think there is a sincere problem. So I just want to think that the government, just like the separatists, they should all be committed to dialogue. And then secondly, we should also understand, when I say we, I'm referring to the belligerents, the two camps, the state of Cameroon and of course the arms fighters. They should not continuously pretend to say they are fighting to defend their people or fighting to safeguard the interests of the people, where at the end of the day, this civilian population are the #1 victims in their hands. So I think that at one point in time, that my brother just said here, they should also call for a ceasefire, permit the people to live their lives the way they can, normally, freely, without any form of intimidation from any person. And then lastly, I would like to say that one other thing with the regime in Cameroon is that they have always given people the impression, or they have always caused Cameroonians not to want to trust them for anything. And of course, with the Canadian initiative, we saw it again. When people are coming out to acclaim an initiative, and then that's when they come out to say, no, we did not mandate any person. I don't want to think that there is any single Cameroonian who works within this regime, within this government, who could take the risk to go out there and start negotiating anything on behalf of the state of Cameroon without the mandate, without the blessings from Yaoundé. I don't think that is possible. So what I can say again, Mr. Babla, is that Yaoundé has both the yam and the knife. Let them commit to dialogue and go on the table, so that from there at least we will be able to see how far we go with resolving the crisis back there.
Professor Edmond BILOA, about the Anglophone crisis that's been going on for 6 years.
Well, I mean, the Canadian initiative is a very good one, and we hope that something will come out of it. The government has said several times that they are committed to dialogue. So the good thing is that if all the branches of the armed groups of the Anglophones can come together and speak in one single voice, so that should be able to foster negotiation and to facilitate and even speed up negotiation. So we are very optimistic that something will come out of the Canadian initiative.
Right, Professor Edmond BILOA is an international university lecturer, professor of linguistics at the University of Yaoundé 1 and vice rector of the University of Yaoundé 2. Thank you so much, Professor, for your time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Engineer Elvis NJINE, head of the communication department of the Popular Action Party. Thank you for your time.
It's been a pleasure.
Amadu TARNTE, human rights defender, littoral and northwest head of the human rights organization African Conscience. Thank you for coming.
Thank you too, Mr. Babila. It was really a pleasure, and I just pray that so much sort of opportunity to come forward, so that we can use the opportunity to tell Cameroonians what is happening within the country and with the way forward, what we think should be done to address such happenings.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today's edition of The Inside. Goodbye.